Coming up, a new office for missing and murdered Indigenous people in South Dakota, music from a classical guitar player, and a milestone for ICT. Plus, hoop dancers compete in Phoenix. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Gutwatsi Hopa. Thank you for joining us. History is made in Washington state. On Thursday, Indigenous leaders, advocates, families, and policymakers gathered at the Tulalip Resort Casino. Governor Jay Inslee signed several bills impacting Washington tribal nations into law. Most notably, Inslee signed House Bill 1725. The law requires the state to implement an alert system when an Indigenous person goes missing. It will work similarly to a silver or amber alert, and it is the first of its kind in the United States. When an Indigenous person goes missing, information about them will be broadcasted on message signs, highway advisory radio messages, and on phone alerts. The bill was supported by Washington State Representative Deborah Lakanoff. She is the only Native person currently serving in the state's legislature. In February, she joined the ICT Newscast to share more.
We have looked to find opportunities to where this alert system removes the hand across the mouth, and we hear our sisters' unheard screams. The alert system intertwines our tribal, local, state, federal police together and our broadcasters, showing that we have lost a woman and we need to bring her back to our family.
In Washington, Indigenous women go missing 4 times more than white women, according to research by the Urban Indian Health Institute. Tribal nations in Southern California are celebrating a big win. Last week, a Canadian mining company, K2 Gold, indefinitely suspended operations on its controversial drilling project. The company says it is stopping its project after receiving a letter from the Bureau of Land Management. The agency said the company would have to complete an environmental impact statement to proceed. The area impacted would have been on conglomerate Mesa, where tribes have historically harvested pinon seeds. Kathy Bancroft from the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone tribe says she hopes any future mining companies understand the future stewards of the land will never allow a gold mine at their mesa. The U.S. Department of Energy is announcing an additional $3.16 billion in new funding to enhance its weatherization program. Tribes, states, and some U.S. territories are all eligible to apply. The weatherization projects deal primarily with improving energy efficiency. For some Alaska Native villages, past projects included additional insulation to floors, walls, and attics. Senior advisor to the president, Mitch Landrieu, spoke to ICT about the funding directed towards tribal communities.
Tribal communities, quite frankly, and I think the president sees this, which is why he constructed the bill the way he did, has always been left behind, left out, promises made, not promises kept, promises broken, right? And so in this particular bill, that's why they have a $13.2 billion set aside, if you will, money directly related to the tribes. You don't have to go through the governors. You don't have to go through the mayors. You go through the leadership of the tribal communities.
To learn more, tribal nations can go to energy.gov. A digital mapping project by Indigenous professors at the University of Wisconsin focuses on Ho-Chunk history. Professor Casey Keeler calls the project Mapping Dejop, Indigenous Histories and Presence in Madison. The digital story map will allow users to go on a self-guided and self-paced tour to important Ho-Chunk sites. Keeler is working with Alaska Native professor Sasha Suarez and Ojibwe professor Jen Rose Smith. All three professors regularly meet with the university's map experts.
Myself and Sasha and Jen have been meeting regularly already with folks from the Department of Geography here on campus, and specifically the cartography program. So we have cartographers at the University of Wisconsin, of course, faculty who are experts.
Once the project has approval from an institutional review board, community members will be tapped for their input. This year, for the first time ever, the City of Seattle will officially celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. Seattle City Council voted 7-0 to solidify both Indigenous Peoples Day and Juneteenth as city holidays beginning this year. The Indigenous community and the city have been observing the day since 2014. Blackfeet citizen Deborah Juarez sponsored the legislation. She is the first Indigenous president of the Seattle City Council. Juarez says the new legislation was required in order to formalize the holiday. It now establishes a parking holiday and works with multiple labor unions to recognize the day. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, there are new hoop dance champions, and meet Ricey Wild, who says it ain't easy being Indian. But first, a victory in South Dakota for missing and murdered Indigenous persons. Stay with us. South Dakota is funding a new office to look into cases of missing and murdered Indigenous persons, starting with private donations. Representative Puri Poyer breaks this down.
Well, we have great news to report that it has been included in the general budget for the South Dakota appropriations. The bill was originally supposed to be budgeted as such, and we kept the conversation going by putting my own appropriations bill, just because of the back and forth that happened in the media. Unfortunately, politics is the nature of the beast, but we kept the conversations going, and we're proud that Governor Kristi Noem has taken it a part of her platform, and she's fully endorsed the idea and fully funded the position. And that position will be funded forever.
The funding for the state office starts July 1st to hire a single individual.
We are a part of Indian country, and oftentimes that we have to create our own change that we want to see. We have to start from the bottom and work our way up. So I applaud all the grassroots activists who brought this to the awareness, and now the legislators have seen that this is an issue that deserves reasonable solutions. So that person who will be in that position, yes, it's one person, but they'll be working under the Attorney General's office, one of the most powerful offices in the state of South Dakota, and they will have the duty to grow that office, and it can grow. You have 9 tribal nations within the state of South Dakota, and you have a lot of different jurisdictions to maneuver. And that person would have to be very hands-on, smart, on their feet, and know that in Indian country, you have to work 10 times hard to get anything going, to make any ground and headway. But this is a start. Change, unfortunately, doesn't happen in one big swoop. We don't wake up to change. We have to chip away, and we have to play the long game and just be consistent at working away at it.
Representative Poyer is an advocate for establishing a state-funded Lakota immersion school, but it didn't get enough votes to pass.
So whenever the challenges that do come, whenever they grow up and they face in their teenagers, like we all went through our teenagers, we have peer pressure. We have all these different challenges that Native children face. They have that resiliency that they could tap into, and they could say, this is not who I am. This is, I am Lakota Malakota. So that is a part of putting it into the school systems. And really having an institution that really acknowledges and appreciates Native children the way they should be, creating that Yoshpae, our families, is our powerhouse. And whenever you look at your teacher as your auntie, as you look at your coaches as your uncle, and they treat you such, and they have that care and concern, and they speak the same way that which you would understand, that speaks volumes for children. They're more apt to learn, they're getting all their needs met, so they're able to be more successful, and they could avoid the pitfalls and the challenges that they face when they grow up. Our incarceration rates for Native population is through the roof. Again, another disproportionate rate across the state. So instead of looking at increasing prisons or increasing welfare or increasing alcohol treatment centers and all these different ways that we treat problems after they occur. And this is the Ocheti Shakoi Community Schools was about Natives coming together, subject matter experts in Indian education coming together with a solution ahead, and saying, let's prevent all this from happening and let's do it the best way we know how. Indian country often forgets the Indian in education.
Thank you, South Dakota State Representative Puri Poyer. This week marks the first anniversary of Indig Public Media, the parent company that owns the ICT Newscast and IndianCountryToday.com. Mark Trahant also celebrates an anniversary. 4 years ago, he was hired to bring ICT back to life after the Oneida Indian Nation ceased publication.
Well, I mean, it was really remarkable. It started as a private sector newspaper, Tim Gallego on Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And his vision was a weekly newspaper serving Lakota people. It expanded nationally and became Indian Country Today. And a couple of years after that, Tim decided to sell it. And he sold it to the Oneida Indian Nation in New York State. And for a while, they moved the offices first to Oneida and then to New York City. They became a magazine. They published all sorts of things and kept expanding. And then in September 2017, they decided that the market wasn't supporting that and pulled out. And it went dark for several months. And in February of 2018, Jackie Peda, who was then the executive director of NCAI, announced that the Oneida Indian Nation had donated the assets to NCAI. They hired me to restart it, and the rest is history.
The Oneida Nation kept the Indian Country Today website alive, but few updates were made.
People realized immediately how much had been lost. And one of the ones that get me is that something like 5,000 people a day were looking at a website that was dormant. And they were just hungry for news and trying to find out things. What makes this chapter of ICT so remarkable is, unlike any other era, we're run by journalists. That was true of Tim Gallego, but the other factor is we're also a nonprofit. We're not in this to make money. We're actually a public service, and our entire existence is about public service.
Trahant describes the role of the National Congress of American Indians in ICT.
I think from the beginning, we knew that there was going to be a tough relationship with NCAI in that, I mean, it's funny, if you go back and look at the first plan, NCAI asked for money from tribes for ICT and its public relations campaign, and it saw them kind of as left-hand, right-hand type of thing. And it was pretty clear right away that that wasn't going to work. And journalists are just ornery, and we have our own way of doing things. And the other thing is we tend to move fast. Any organization that deals with political issues has a process to go through, and we're like lightning. I mean, something happens, we want to post it now. And those two things were just irreconcilable. So we started looking for a way out of that. And it became clear that it was going to have to be some sort of hybrid. Originally, there was going to be an NCAI-owned Indian Country Today that would be separate. And I think that's when we started thinking about what structure would work best. And Indig Public Media was our creation for that. And I'm one of the few people that can say I hired my own boss. I brought in Karen Michelle to run the company, and she's just done a phenomenal job and really set out a vision for Indig Public Media. And I think one of the telling, well, there are two things that I think are really telling. One, and we haven't announced this yet, so you're breaking it on IC2 Newscast. We have $1 million grant coming from the Bay and Paul Foundation, which is just remarkable and shows how far we've come in a lot of ways. And the second thing is that last year, we thought we were being pretty aggressive and budgeted $200,000 from individuals, from people just writing us small checks. And the average check we get is $35. And we ended the year at $340,000. And I think that's a real testament to, one, the width of support, the depth of support from Indian country.
Thank you, Mark. Well, the dancers are back in style. In Phoenix, Arizona, 100 hoop dancers from North America gathered at the Heard Museum for the World Championship. ICT's Shirley Snavy and Max Montour have this report.
For what they get to witness, this champion hoop dancing, this is world class, and they're excited. And so some of them are tired, but they're staying here with us watching. And a lot of our hoop dance fans are senior citizens. And so they come year after year. Some are snowbirds, but a lot of our hoop dance fans, they've been here many years. They have their favorite dancer that they saw dance 15 years ago. And if they don't come that year, they'll come up and say, are they here? Is so-and-so here? And so it's a great family. The hoop dance fans are hoop dancers and they're singers. So
last year's contest was virtual. This year, a record number of 100 dancers competed for $25,000. Samson Six Killer Cinqua won the men's adult category.
Oh man, I'm just I guess overwhelmed with emotions. Just how the past 2 years have been going, and not knowing if we would come back together again, and then not seeing people when we do come back, and it's just happy to share the dance and happy to be with everybody again.
The hoop dance is an incredibly athletic event. Sade Faye Young is a high school athlete at the Santa Fe Indian School.
We competed in the New Mexico 3A state finals for basketball, and we got second place for that. And then I also competed in state for volleyball as well, fell short, and now I'm doing softball.
But she didn't fall short in the teen division. Her grandfather sang for her.
Surprisingly, I got this award. I thought my competitors that I competed with, I think they did an amazing job, and they did deserve, I think some of them did deserve the first place, but I mean, it ended up in my hands, which is very surprising, but I am honored to get this award.
Beanie John was the only woman in the top 6 finishers in the adult category.
I think I saw my first woman hoop dancer was Lisa Ojig, and I was just like really, really young. I think I was about maybe 12 years old when I first saw her. And she was one of the women that I was like, all right, she's doing it. And predominantly men, but I knew that this was the dance that was for me. And it's a storytelling, healing dance. And it really encapsulated everything that I was feeling at a young age and allowed me to express everything through hoop dancing.
Derek Davis is a 7-time winner in the adult division, but this is his first year dancing and winning in the senior division.
Mainly, it was just the art form of being able to convey a message of balance, comfort, something that we all seek, that safety. So the storytelling and the dance, and then the audience appreciating that reminder through the cultural singing and dancing.
Quentin Pipestone from Alberta, Canada, taught Samson Cinqua to dance.
I was taught that I dance for everyone that wants to dance and everyone that can't dance, and always for the ones before us and all of our ancestors and the ones who fought to keep our traditions alive, for us to be able to share this with everybody, actually have a contest.
Dancing is a family tradition for many.
I identify as two-spirit, so I'm actually a men's grass dancer. I was initiated when I was 10 years old. So a lot of my style is very grounded, but my siblings who did hoop dancing were fancy dancers. So I get my high stepping and then the very low stepping, so I combined it. And we do a lot of storytelling, traditional storytelling with my parents. So I always try to make it very theatrical, for the audience so they can make up their own story as they're watching me.
During the afternoon break, I asked MC Dennis Bowen if he had a pick for the winner.
I'm a grandpa. They're all winners. Having announced high school basketball, wrestling, track, football, they were all our children out there playing. And it's like, let's not keep score. Let's just play the game. No score. And I feel that way. I used to announce basketball. That's how I felt. It's like I did the announcing for their parents that want to hear their child's name. But I didn't want to announce the score, you know. So that's how my ancestors wanted me to be fair, to share fairness. So, good way.
In Phoenix, Arizona with Max Montour, I'm Shirley Snavy, ICT News.
Readers of the Minnesota-based newspaper The Circle know the column by Ricey Wild called It Ain't Easy Being Indian. Her English name is Christine Shotley. She tells us how she started writing.
I introduced myself as an urban Indian woman. You know, my green fingernails. I was a vegetarian at the time. I love my city of Minneapolis. And it wasn't really like a dating ad or anything like that. It was just introducing myself as like, you know, who I am. Well, how then I became published monthly in The Circle. And that was for a few years until I moved up here. And it was complete culture shock. I can't even tell you how I felt so out of place in my own homeland. You know, I mean, even the women up here wear camo gear. So then my column changed, and it was about me trying to adjust to reservation life. And I lived in the city of Cloquet at first, and then I moved out here to the reservation, Fond du Lac Reservation, which I named Resberry in my column. And the reference there was like, you know, it's a little small backward town like Mayberry. You know, I don't know if everybody understands that. And I've even been asked, well, where is Resberry? And I say, well, where's your reservation? You know, that's Resberry too.
That was columnist Ricey Wild. Best Instrumental CD, Best World Music, and Artist of the Year are some of the awards Gabriel Ayala has earned from the Native American Music Awards over his career. He combines traditional Native values with classical music.
You know, it's trying to infuse our traditional teachings within the music. So when I write music, I don't just pick up the guitar and write a song. I actually, so for my tribe, our ceremonies, I'm a traditional ceremonial singer. So a lot of times I'll just sing melodies and record them on my phone and then teach them to myself later on the guitar. And I share that with our youth of how we can incorporate that. And we don't have to lose those traditional ways and values that we have.
Ayala offered a song. Ayala explains his philosophy.
I said it once at a concert, at the end of a concert, and I just stopped in my tracks and I said, wow, that's really truly what I believe. You know, love, honor, and respect. Our children are sacred. You know, they're just so innocent, and it's our job to take care of them, regardless of our direct blood or not, where it's our nieces or not. We should take care of them. and honoring our elders for all that they've done, for all that they continue to give. And the biggest one for me is always the respect for women. I mean, women are truly the most sacred beings on this earth. They are givers of life. And it's unfortunate that we don't revere them as that anymore. It's hurtful. But coming from an upbringing of being raised by a woman, I connect with that so much. And I reach out to people and tell them and share with them how important it really truly is to honor and respect our women.
Let's hear some more from Gabriel Ayala. That's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.